Smooth on my end. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for being here. Got a couple people who were waiting on the stream. So shout out to the people who were patient. Thank you for being here. So what we're going to do here is it is Monday. So, of course, Monday. We're going to be doing our week ahead. We're going to be talking a little bit in advance about some ideas and some trade setups for the week. So I'll just give you guys the rundown. I have no trades open myself currently. So I'm looking mostly today for the dollar to give me a little bit of a pullback. And it seems like we're actually getting that. So I wanted to start here today with that USD. Of course, we've been talking about the US dollar a lot recently. If you've been tuning into the streams recently, let me make sure everybody is good on my end. We should be streaming to two different places. We're streaming to the Eightcap side of things, who is, of course, sponsoring today's video, as well as to my channel, which is awesome. Cool. It looks like we're up and running. Cool. Hey, Kevin, thank you for being here. So I would just like to say, of course, if you're watching this back at a later period of time, you can tune into my streams. Usually they're 9:30 a.m. US Eastern on my channel, Trader Nick, but we start a little early here for the trade zone with Eightcap. And I just want to give a quick shout out to Eightcap. So this month I've been doing sort of a really awesome guest hosting feature with them. So I've been their guest analyst for the month. We've been talking a lot about the US dollar, Federal Reserve hawkishness, and trying to play through that story, as well as trying to maintain a trend following perspective. So as we go through this, what you'll find, I'll be sharing some ideas for this week. I'll be sharing some trades, of course, that I am interested in taking myself. And if you were here last week, then you know we caught some good moves on things like the dollar Swiss. The dollar Swiss was a great mover. Caught some beautiful long side action there. Ended up trailing out for a profit, which was a great spot to be in. And now looking this week for pullbacks. So this is kind of my top watch list pair right now. Super boring, I know, to just keep trading the same pair over and over, but nothing about trading is there was no promise of trading being super exciting, right? The actual execution of trading is pretty dang boring because you're just sort of sitting around and waiting. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do here with my dollar Swiss idea. So let me show you this, guys. So we've got a overall uptrend here. We're looking at the 4-hour chart on the US dollar against the Swiss franc. And overall, this thing is trending very nicely to the upside, right? We've got beautiful, moving average confluence to the upside, and overall just continuing to chug higher. Now, we've discussed this several times, but the main idea for dollar bullishness here, besides the technical price action, is the fundamental catalyst. Now, the big reason here for that is that inflation is very high in the United States. And last year, by the way, it's high in many other places as well. But in the US, the Federal Reserve has a mission. They want to get that inflation number back down to their target of 2%. It's a long-term goal for them because we're floating at a very high 8.4, 8.6, somewhere in the 8s of inflation right now. We had the latest numbers come out last week, which caused a massive run up in the dollar. Why? Well, the inflation numbers missed yet again. We had a higher than anticipated level of inflation for the month of September, which caused the markets to be a little panicky and the dollar to shoot up. Now, this week, we seem to be getting a little bit of a pullback. So as we pull back, my goal is to try and pick it up on the long side. So I like 99.45, let's call it 99.45. Yep. So if we take a look at price action for a second, if we want to be long, right? So I want to buy the dollar. I'd like to buy it against the Swiss franc. Well, we had this level here, this resistance point that held significantly. But then on this candle here, we got this big break to the upside, pulled back, and shot to the upside. This is where we caught that trade. If you were tuned into the previous live streams, we were long on dollar Swiss on that pullback. Now it looks like price might be stalling out and coming back down to the 99.45 level, where I could potentially pick up another attempt to go long. So I'll give you guys this idea here. I would like to pick up dollar Swiss right where I left it off, right where I bought it previously. So let's target that. Let's talk about this a little bit. So we're narrowing in a little bit on this idea, but a pullback here, perhaps to the 99.40 mark, let's call it. So right around in this area, I'd be interested in potentially trying to pick up dollar Swiss long yet again for another attempt to go higher. Now, we've made a lot of great trades on this pair recently. I've made some nice profits off of just kind of riding this upward momentum. And this is where you sort of have to kind of come back and just say, hey, you know what? If the trade sets up again, I'm taking it. So for me, that would be just a little bit more of a haircut here on the dollar Swiss. If that comes into play, I'll have to pick up some on the long side with a stop below market structure. So that's how I'm approaching this week. It is one of my top favorite pairs to look at. And I'll show you guys another reason why. We'll pull up the Edge Finder here for a second. And the Edge Finder, if you're not familiar, the Edge Finder is our tool that we've built here at A1 Trading. We're a small software team. We build trading tools for people who are interested in them. And this tool has been sort of the guideline to how I find my trades for the last 6 months or so. Now, the strategy behind it I've used for much longer than that, but we finally got this tool built where we can kind of scan markets quickly and get an idea. So let's see. So if I'm taking a look at the Edge Finder here, what I've got is for the dollar Swiss, we've got a buy rating. Why is this a buy rating? Well, let's walk down the list just for a second. The COT data, as of latest numbers, I'll scroll down here so you can see it just a little bit better. So what we've got here is the US dollar actually increased in its positioning from non-commercial traders. Big money has increased their long exposure to the US dollar as of last week. That's interesting information because the dollar has been so strong already, yet this is what hedge funds tend to do. They tend to ride trends, right? Which is what we're trying to mimic in our own trading. At least that's what I try and focus on. Comparatively speaking, we take a look at the Swiss franc. It has a very low long ratio. In fact, actually even a high level of short interest from institutional traders. Then we finally combine that. We say, well, who else also is short on this pair? Well, it's the retail crowd, which tends to lose money. So if we know all of these stats, that's going to align myself more to the long side, right? So COT, looking at institutional traders, we get a long bias. Looking at the retail traders, we also get a long bias, knowing that they're trying to sell this thing. So seasonality, also a big factor there, of course. So the month of October is actually a positive historical month for dollar Swiss. And we're seeing that come to fruition as we speak. So the dollar Swiss looks optimistic, looks strong, and actually continues that expected rise in November. So some interesting stats there for you to pay attention to on the dollar Swiss. And this is why we maintain a long bias. Now, of course, a lot of times what traders will do is they'll just open up a chart and they'll start drawing trend lines and support and resistance and all this and that. And many times people are so confused why that just doesn't work for them, why they're not actually able to make any sort of consistent profits. And what we found is that, yes, technicals matter, but technicals are just red light and green light signals. But direction, really understanding why a chart will go one way or the other, doesn't necessarily just come from technicals, at least in our philosophy when it comes to markets. When I'm saying our, I mean myself and the other traders and developers that are involved in building this tool. We've focused more heavily on market data and trends that are sort of observable patterns. So for example, the month of October and November tend to be positive months for the dollar Swiss. That's an observable trait that we can use to sort of better align ourselves with strong market moves. By the way, if you'd like access to the Edge Finder, you can find it on our website, a1trading.com, and you can get it there. But so there you go. We're going to be doing this. By the way, we're doing a sponsored video today with Eightcap, this stream. If you're watching on my side, a big thank you to Eightcap. You guys know that, the stuff that we do, it requires money, it requires, assistance, and financially it can be very expensive. So thanks to Eightcap today for sponsoring our streams. If you're watching on my channel, we've got several people here tuned in on my channel. I would encourage you guys to check out Eightcap if you're not already using Eightcap. You know what I'm going to do is I realize I don't have the link here. Give me 1 second. What I'm going to do, get the link for you guys to go check out Eightcap if you haven't already. So give me one moment and I'll pull that up. Yeah. So the thing is, right, as traders, we can never guarantee exactly what's going to happen with the market. We can only make probability-based decisions. Okay. And I'm going to drop that link right here in just a moment here. You guys, I got the link in my digital hands, if you will, my copy paste. Okay. Copy it. And there it is. So I'm going to drop the link right there. There we go. And I'm going to pin it to the top of the stream so you guys can see it there. So there you go. Sweet. Yeah. So like I was saying, there's no certainties when it comes to trading, but there is probability-based decision-making process, and we use software to try and help us with that. So there you go. The link is now in the description if you refresh the page, or if you just click the link that's in the chat. You can check out Eightcap. Again, check them out. It's a big thank you to them for sponsoring this content. Hey, Ivan, good to see you. Hey, Nate. Our market opens at 8. You're late. Drew and Emily, write them up. Yeah, we do the streams at 9 just because that's usually when sort of the stock market and the futures market really gets moving here in the US. 9:30 is, of course, the opening bell for the New York session, which is right as we're coming up into it. So we're sort of doing that prep. So again, the idea here is probability based. So we're looking for pullbacks. We're looking for setups on the dollar. I like dollar Swiss at 99.40 with stops below structure. So that's one that I'm interested in. Another one that I'm interested in is euro dollar on the short side. And you know, you draw your fibs here. Let's see, we're actually tapping into the 38.2 right now. If you're super aggressive on the euro dollar, you might be watching this area, right? You've got some resistance here that you might be able to justify looking at. And then, of course, you know, the longer term has been a strong downtrend. So for me, it's selling rallies as often as I can, of course, with good risk management. But even where we currently sit, I'll show you guys this. You have a couple different scenarios for the euro dollar that look attractive to me. So I could see myself, in fact, I actually don't hate the idea of possibly getting short here on dollars, on euro dollar, looking for continuation moves with an attempt possibly here, and then maybe a second attempt as you rally up into the 618. And again, this is mostly just based on the higher time frame downtrend that we've been seeing. You know, on the daily chart, we're very weak overall on the euro dollar. Nate, I know you were kidding. Thank you for tuning in, and thanks to everybody who's joined the stream. I see you guys' chats, and I'm going to do my best to look at some of your crosses. I know some pairs people wanted to ask about gold. If you guys have charts that you would like to request, AUDUSD, another one that was questioned or brought in. So I'll take a look at those as we go. Palm D says euro dollar to the downside. Hi, I just got there. Yeah, thanks for being here. So I like euro dollar to the downside. Like I said, I think in this area you may get some decent opportunities. But my idea would be if this totally fails out, maybe that second attempt could be up at that 61.8, looking for continuations. In fact, I think I'm going to look to short the euro dollar here today if we get some rejection in this area. So there you go. Thank you, Ivan, for requesting basically everything. By the way, guys, if you're not already watching on Eightcap, if you'd like to show some extra support, you can actually look up Eightcap on YouTube and follow or watch the stream there. We're streaming on their platform today, as they've set me up as their guest analyst for the month, which has been so much fun. And we're going to be doing, by the way, I should say this too. We're doing coaching webinars throughout the month. Each Wednesday, I go onto the Eightcap platform. We do private webinars where I answer questions and such. So if you're not already involved in that, there will be a link in my description if you're watching on my channel to check it out and to join that webinar on Wednesday. You just have to be within their universe, the Eightcap universe, if you will. So I do like euro dollar, like I said, 38.2 as a possible attempt to sell, with that 61.8 being that backup sell price. I like both. I would be interested in possibly selling that. So euro dollar, we can take a quick look, and you can actually see it's got a really good sell reading overall, a -6 overall, and you can see almost every category printing in the red, and red, of course, meaning a bias towards selling it. So you've got a trend movement to the downside, right? -2. So overall momentum to the downside. We've got the commitment of traders data, which tells us, like I said earlier, that the dollar is quite favorited, right, by institutional traders, and the euro is sort of mixed. You have 55-45, so it's pretty mixed on institutional positioning. So that puts us overall in -1 in that category. Seasonality tells us to sell in these months, right? We've continued to see that be the case, and has been holding up pretty well in recent events. We also have, like I said, inflation, unemployment, and interest rates. The economic figures favoring the U.S. dollar big time. So looking at that, right, the US dollar in terms of comparing these things in things like GDP growth is the only one where we aren't leading, right? So the euro is leading in GDP, but everything else, inflation numbers, inflation is at 10% in Europe. That's incredible. 8.2% in the US. So with those Federal Reserve interest rate hikes, we're seeing at least a little bit of a cool off, at least compared to, I mean, we didn't get much of one from last week, but compared to Europe, which has jumped up into the 10% mark. That's scary stuff, but puts strength to the dollar, right? Comparatively speaking. So then we take a look at interest rates. Again, interest rates in the US at 3.25% with a 75 basis point, though, coming in from Europe as well. It still just does not seem to be enough to get in front of their inflation, which is scary, scary business as we see inflation continue to rise around the world at this time. So like I said, I do favor the US dollar in this case. So possibly looking to short euro dollar here today at current levels. I don't hate it. AUDUSD was one that people requested, and we'll take a look at gold next. So Aussie dollar catching a little bit of a rally here, seemingly finding some support off of this low. So we'll mark this as our demand zone. So a little bit of strength coming in. I think Aussie dollar still to the downside till something changes. The thing is, right, a lot of times traders will try and focus so heavily on the reversal. For me, this is a sell until it changes directions, right? I don't know when that direction change is going to come. It's very, very hard to call a reversal, and I try to stick away from it. My goal is to look at something like AUDUSD and say, okay, well, if it rallies up into this zone, right, it's in a downtrend. The edge finder gives me a sell bias as it has for weeks now. That would be a sell for me, right? Looking for continuation moves. So if I'm looking at AUDUSD, very, very simply just going to follow the trend here until it tells me to go ahead and quit trying to follow it, right? And for me, that would probably mean a breakout here, right? Higher lows, higher highs, but we don't know that that's coming, right? We know right now what we're seeing, which is a strong downtrend, and a pop into that area to me would be an interesting sell opportunity on something like AUDUSD. So in fact, let's take a look at the edge finder for AUDUSD as well. Ivan says, can I buy CAD yen? You can do whatever you want, Ivan. You know that. So AUDUSD, let's see. If we're taking a look at this pair, what we see is -5 overall. We get the commitment of traders data, which tells us, okay, the Aussie, look at this, the Australian dollar in terms of COT data is very much on the short side of things. We have the Aussie dollar just very, very much 67% short. So that ratio of hedge funds being very heavily on the net short side of things is really interesting. We have also, of course, the inverse for the dollar, which we keep talking about, a 79, roughly speaking, percent long ratio on the dollar. So definitely the dollar being the favorite of the two currencies right now in terms of hedge funds and big players, smart money, whatever you'd like to call them. And then retail sentiment, the exact opposite. 69%, nice, of retail traders are long. So if we know that they're trying to buy this thing and this thing is continuing to trend down, I mean, we sound like broken records here on the channel, but this is really what trading is about. You're supposed to sound like a broken record. You're supposed to sound, you're supposed to repeat yourself and go over and over on these concepts. That's what real trading looks like. Real trading is not just gut shot calling things all the time. It's just following trends and looking for opportunities. I made a tweet this morning. If you guys don't follow me on Twitter, I've become a lot more active there. I heard something of this nature and I wanted to echo it in a tweet this morning. I was listening to a podcast and actually, I was listening back to a podcast that I did with Sam KB. Some of you guys might know Sam KB. I did a podcast episode with him this past week, and I was listening back some of the content, and he made a great point that I absolutely love, and I kind of stole it and made it into my own tweet. But the idea, the echoing idea was, if the trade is there and you've done your back testing, you take it, right? If you have something in front of you, right? Let me ask you guys, if you were looking, if I told you I had a coin flip, right? Heads or tails, and the coin flip was 60-40. If it was a 60% chance it's going to be heads, 40% chance it was going to be tails. You and I were sitting across the table from each other. If you had the 60% odds, you would take that bet every single time you could, right? That's how trading should work too. But you have to wait for the setup to really come to you, right? So when I'm looking at setups here, I have a lot of ideas on the dollar here today, but it's not quite at my level. I'm waiting for that setup. I'm waiting patiently to take that opportunity, but you would take that bet every time. And that's how trading is supposed to work. Oh, sorry, Ivan, I was in front of it. Scroll down on the edge finder so you can see retail sentiments behind your head. Yeah, sorry about that. There we go. My head is too big. Yeah, so there you go. You got your retail sentiment, get an idea of what that's looking like. So again, the idea there being with trading it's all probabilities. On a single trade, you might get it completely wrong, right? So if I'm looking at AUDUSD and price comes up into this pair or comes up into this level that I'm interested in and I sell it, sure, this trade might go terribly poorly, right? I might stop out, but I'm going to risk small. And if I do this often enough and I align myself often enough with a strong probability of overall making money, that's where my edge as a trader plays out. It's not in this one trade, it's in many, many trades over years of trading. So there you go. So I said I would take a look at gold. So let's look at gold here as well. So we'll look at XAUUSD here, which is attempting to rally back. Look at this coming back into this level. And it seems like we are tapping into this sort of what was support. Let me actually change this to pink red color. So check this out. Gold here this morning, rallying back. A little bit of strength coming into the gold market after double bottoming. This is a good start to the day for gold for sure. You're seeing this level here now become what seems to be a level of demand, a level of support here. So finding some strength coming in here and retesting this area. So for the bulls, we need a breakout, right? For the sellers, for the bears, this looks like a sell area, right? So you have this area here where we have what was support, broke out, retested, sold off, now being retested again. And again, if the dollar is expected to be so strong, the gold market take a tumble with that. So again, the idea here being looking for continuation moves. I would say that if I'm looking at gold, I don't trade gold on the short side, as my only way to trade gold is currently through the stock market. And I could short it, but I just don't love shorting gold. I prefer to be on the long side of gold, to be honest, because of its long-term, like super long-term, slight upward bias. But anyways, from a short-term perspective and mostly from a dollar bullish perspective, gold up in this area, you know, in terms of where we could see it go, if you're a bear, we don't want to see it come up here, right? We don't want to see it come up to that area. That would be settings to go ahead and jump out of a trade idea, because that could explode into a new trend to the upside. This is the line in the sand, right? For sellers, I would say, is that 1685 mark. We don't want to see price break there. But if you're a bear, we very well could be headed back down to the previous lows, which put 1615. And that's a 2-to-1 risk to reward, roughly. Just kind of going with that downward trend. And again, if you look at the daily chart, it's been trending really well to the downside, like beautifully overall. There's been so much money on the downside here for gold. And again, we take a look at the edge finder and we get an idea of what's going on with gold. So gold's still getting a very strong sell reading overall. So I'll show you guys this. So gold, strong sell. And if we take a look at the -6 reading overall, momentum to the downside. I mean, this chart has been super bearish. In fact, I saw this, it's targeting 1593, which is crazy. I mean, that could of course change at some point, but 1593 is a move down to here, which is a continuation move, 1593, like roughly here. And that makes sense, right? Like if the trend continues, we would expect the previous low to actually get taken out. And, you know, as crazy as it sounds, is like, you know, these moves have been really massive. I mean, this one move right here, just this to this, is an $87 move on the price of gold. So if we were to see one more of those, 87 would be down to here, right? So that puts us even beyond 1593. So if that move were to continue, if it were to exactly happen again, or this move, which looks relatively similar, you can see this move was about 110, 112 pips, or 110, $112 on the price of gold. If that whole move happens, right, we could measure that out. That would put us about here, back down to the lows and just beyond it by a little bit. So kind of interesting. Stream quality very bad. It should be pretty good actually. I believe with where we're streaming off of, Eightcap's restream, and I believe they have 1080, which is quite good. In fact, it's so good that I feel like I need to get my streams to be in 1080. We just need to make the jump and pay more for the streaming software, but it's in It's in mind. EUROCAD. I see your request for EUROCAD. I'll take a look at it next here. Let's see what's going on with EUROCAD. So EUROCAD. Looking at the daily chart right now, which has actually found what seems to be a bottom. The CAD has really weakened. That's the primary thing here is the Canadian dollar has been very, very weak. Um, overall, right? So, or sorry, in recent times. Now, overall, the euro has actually been taking a beating against the Canadian dollar over the past, year or so. But in recent times, what we're seeing is a little bit of a move up. But I think you have to be careful because if you look at this thing like long term, we're sort of nearing levels of resistance on EuroCAD, but we're not quite there. So you might get some short term continuation, right? EuroCAD continue, it's found some support in this area. It could be rallying up into the 1.3650. From there, I'd be a bit cautious, but that still leaves plenty of room to short term traders, day traders, and even swing traders to catch that move possibly. But EuroCAD, I don't have a huge bias on this one, to be honest with you. So if I show you guys, the Edge Finder's view, EuroCAD, actually, we'll see. Might be a sell bias. We'll see. Nope, pretty neutral. So there's no strong bias for me. So whenever I take a trade, I have to have a bias behind it, right? I mentioned earlier that what I'm looking for is trades that I could take over and over again, and they're going to result in probably a profit, right? If I don't have like a lot of bias behind a trade, I'm just not going to take it. So if you don't have the Edge Finder and you would like access to it, again, you've probably seen me using it all stream. If you'd like access to this tool, head over to a1trading.com and just head over and you can find a copy of the Edge Finder there. You can purchase it if you would like access. So that's going to wrap up today's stream, guys. We talked a lot about setups. We've got more stuff coming throughout the week. Again, we'll be back on Wednesday with Eightcap. We'll be doing a coaching webinar privately inside of their group. If you haven't already joined Eightcap, please consider joining. Join us for that webinar. It'll be on Wednesday, and you can click the link down below in the description to sign up with Eightcap, get access to their portal, and then you can join in on the webinar. So hope to see some of you guys there, and we'll continue our conversations on Wednesday. So thank you very much for tuning in. Have a great rest of your trading day. We will see you back next time.